Good morning, Titans fans. Welcome back into another edition of the Morning Glory Show. Hope you shit, showered, shave. Hope you got your mayo in your cup because it is time to tighten up. The Tennessee Titans drop another one, but there is room for improvement across the board. But Will Levis seems to be taking the step forward these last couple weeks. So we're going to be talking about that. We'll be talking about Jarvis Brownlee getting high praise from Justin Jefferson and so much more. But if you're joining us for the first time, do us a couple favors, closing in on that 1,000 subscriber mark. So go ahead, hit that little subscribe button. That way you can be entered in to win a Tajay Spears signed jersey. We'll be giving it away as soon as we hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. As you guys can see, 94% of you guys aren't subscribed and only 5% of you are. So do us a favor, hit that button. It's free to you. If you've been checking out the show for a very long time, what the fuck are you doing? Hit the subscribe button. Don't be a hater. But I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, as always, Jonathan Miller's joining us from the Smoky Mountains out there in the wilderness, still making this show at Esports Valen. How you doing today, Jonathan?
Doing well. Look, it doesn't matter. You know, the valleys of the Tennessee hills are at home. Doesn't matter, man. We got to make it happen. What's up, boys?
We're doing it for the people. I don't think at 2-8 we want to do this very much at this point in time, but we got to talk Titans, and there's still reasons to like this team for the future. And then on my other side, B-Will at B-Will TFTV and at TFTV Sports, rocking a wonderful T-shirt that you guys can see right there. And we'll throw that up on the screen. Check out in the show notes below. You can check that out at the YouTube store. We got that wonderful shirt. We got an amazing coffee mug and that Chicago Bulls aesthetic hat. So how you doing today, B-Will?
I'm good, man. Make sure y'all buy y'all a shirt, man. If you go to a game, skip the beer, buy a shirt. Same price, but you get to keep this.
Right.
It's a good point.
Let's talk a little bit.
Even though we need beer watching them, but yeah.
You can head if you're at the home game, you can go down to that tailgate that's free to everybody, and you get the $5 beers, if I remember right, $5-6 cans. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
But let's hop into last week against the Minnesota Vikings. We got to see some good from this team. Westbrook-Akine is elite and is better than Justin Jefferson based on the box score, as you see there. But there's still a lot to reminisce about this game, specifically the penalties, which were huge in that matchup. I think we all three predicted the Vikings would win. We're correct in that, right? But I don't think it transpired how we thought it would go down. Lots of big plays by Will Levis, showing improvement for a second straight week, in my opinion. But we see these Isaiah Prince not offsides, but misplaced foot placement where we get
illegal
three
formation.
Of those. Illegal formation. We got the pass interference on Jarvis Brownlee and so on and so forth. So much to talk about in this game. Jonathan, what was one thing that just stood out to you and about this either offensive line or defense? We'll talk about Will Levis here in just a little bit. That is concerning, and then maybe some upside that you can think about.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the offensive line goes, I think we saw a lot of the same. Obviously, Isaiah Prince signed off a practice squad, gets a chance to go in there and compete against NPF. John Ojukwu looks like he's still hurt. We lost Leroy Watson. I think Leroy went to IR. I could be wrong on this, but either way, two key injuries who seem to be the two guys who should have been competing for that role. But Isaiah Prince comes in, and look, it's not a surprise that you get some illegal formation calls on him. The guy has not played football since this dumb ass rule has been implemented this year. So in fairness to him, he's just lining up the way that he's probably used to been lining up his whole career. So to be completely honest with you, he got called on it twice. The first one, which was the TUD to Calvin, I didn't agree with. I didn't think that he was necessarily misaligned with Radens. But the second one, you could argue he was pretty lined up pretty far back. But again, it's a really nitpicky call. I hate to see it called anytime. It's the one rule for a long time that I've been very adamantly against. It's really dumb. You can't teach these tackles how to play in the NFL this entire, like, for years and years, some of them, and then go, hey, everything that you know and that you've been taught for years, you now have to play differently. And it's funny, like, just an entire step forward, it's a really big advantage to the tackles, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because if you think about it, edge rushers, guys just flying off the edge, these guys get to line up and step and stand wherever they want. If they want an extra step or two, they're able to take it. So for these tackles to be in that type of position, it's really tough. And so Isaiah Prince comes in, tries to get a chance to make an impact, and sure enough, he gets called on which takes back, I would argue, maybe the most important touchdown that this team has needed for many, many weeks. That a big pass down the field from Will Levis to Calvin Ridley. Not only, it wasn't about the 6 points that would have came with that touchdown. It was about everything that the team just needed. Will Levis needed that for his confidence. Calvin needed that for his. They needed that for the connection's sake. I mean, it was so important, and it getting called back was a bummer. And not only was it a bummer, but getting called back in that particular situation where they had just scored, they were building a ton of momentum. Who knows what would have happened there? But to get back to the offensive line, I mean, it's very clear that right tackle is a mess. Brian Callahan after the game goes, he's not pulling any punches. The dudes that are playing right tackle are getting absolutely brutalized by their head coach, and they deserve every second of it. NPF has been not only bad, he's been historic bad. And I don't know what it is with the Titans, since it's like the curse of Taylor Lewan. Since he retired, it's like at the tackle position, we just have some guy who's just categorically bad in every like metric. So it sucks. At least John Ojukwu and Leroy, even though Leroy pulled a lot of flags, these guys were giving us, average play that was at least good enough to have a solidified offensive line. But who knows? I mean, some of the other guys aren't blameless, right? Like, Peter Skoronski had a couple of plays he probably wished he could have had back. Dylan Radin's had a very poor game, in my opinion. So overall, it wasn't just the right tackle spot. But if you can stop the bleeding at that position, then I think overall this offensive line is more times than not pretty good. They also played against a really good defense. And, so like, give the Vikings credit, give the Vikings defensive line credit, give Brian Flores credit. All these guys did a really good job of pressuring, pressuring, and, not making things very easy on this team. So, yeah, I mean, overall, that the trenches, it was very apparent. We saw a lot of the same, and unfortunately, going into Houston next week, it looks like we're going to be looking at the exact same level of play at that position.
I'm a fan of that rule, actually. Any rule that really, for me, that gives the defense a little bit of an edge back is a rule I think is good for the league and good for football, because it's swayed so far over in the favor of the offense. So I'm in favor of this rule as long as it's implemented the way it's supposed to be implemented, and that's the problem. It's not implemented the way it's supposed to be implemented.
It's not consistent at this point.
It's not consistent. You look at any Kansas City game, they don't get called for it ever.
Nope.
But then you see it nitpicked in our game where, it's causing touchdowns get called back, and that's pathetic. That's on the officiating, and they've got to apply the letter of the law the way it should be applied, and they're not doing that. So that's the problem. I don't think it's an issue with the law. I think it's the application of the law, and they're misapplying it. So, other than that, I agree with all you said. It's just, the rule. I'm in favor of it, but with the offensive line play, I mean, Latham. I think a positive is looking at Latham and what he's done this year so far.
Oh, yeah.
He's really been a breath of fresh air at left tackle. And I think, I hate to say it, I think that we really picked the right tackle at that spot between him and Alt.
Dude, that was a double entendre right there, B-Will. You said we picked the right tackle.
The right tackle.
We picked,
and he was the right tackle and the right tackle at the same time.
I wasn't going to toot my own horn while I was doing it, but
I'll toot it for you. That was impressive. That was good.
But, Alt's playing right tackle at in L.A., and he's doing okay. But Latham is really taking that left tackle spot by the horns, and he's going to be a leader in this locker room for a long time, and that's exactly what we drafted him for. And I'm excited to see what he does. So, really, it's easy, and it looks like Carthen and them tried to build the offensive line from the inside out. So, right tackle is really that last piece that we're gonna have to really figure out what we're gonna do. And I don't know, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about this. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not one to want to put any more high end draft capital to this offensive line. We've done this for the last 10 years, and it just hadn't worked. We can't put any more capital into that position. We've got to figure it out.
Capital, at least.
Not first round capital, exactly. I'm fine with second round, mid round capital. We cannot put first round capital in this offensive line anymore with how much we've spent on that position group over the last few years, and that's part of the reason why we have the holes where we have at premium positions. Not to say offensive line isn't premium, especially at tackle. Nowadays, right tackle and left tackle are both premium. But that's why we have no talent at edge. And that's part of the problem that we have now is we haven't been able to try and draft edge guys in the first round to do what we need to do. So that's
Fellas,
part of the dilemma.
We got to talk about our defensive line in this game. Can we talk about how bad they were, how poor this defensive line was at getting to the quarterback?
Finish was the thing. That was the biggest thing. They were getting interior pressure. They just couldn't get the sack. That was the biggest thing.
That is I would argue next to right tackle, the second biggest issue that this team has right now is Jake, that's a better point, is finishing, right? It's like, it's not that they're having trouble
Sam Darnold's
getting
looking
to
like
contact.
05 Vic on Madden out there.
Bro, and that's been the case for the past several weeks where it's just like, man, we cannot finish. There were several times a couple of weeks ago too. I'm forgetting exactly what team it was, but I just can't remember. Like, I remember thinking like, my God, every time they get back there, they're not able to wrap up. They're not able to finish that tackle. And I think it was the Chargers game. It was Herbert. Justin Herbert looked like Mike Vick out there, breaking several tackles every single time he drops back. So yeah, that is a really, really big problem on this football team right now. Could you imagine the Titans playing against the Chiefs or against the Eagles or like some team that has a very mobile, shifty quarterback? I mean, if you look at the Titans, like, it's like, yeah, this number one defense, cool. But if you looked at how they've executed specifically against quarterbacks running the ball, my God, you could go back and like, there's like terrible quarterbacks that have put up 50, 60-yard rushing games against us just because we cannot finish in the backfield.
I feel like I'm
Zach
the only
Wilson
one.
dominated us as a rookie. Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And he did it primarily with his legs. And that was what?
We got killed for years by rookie quarterbacks. So
yeah, that
was a Vrabel thing.
It's been a thing. And I think real quick, where do y'all – I think I'm the only one. I think I'm on an island with thinking that quarterback is our biggest need on this team just because it impacts other positions the way it does. But where do y'all rank y'all's top three needs for this team?
What did you say? Hold on. What did you say? You
I feel like I'm on an island saying quarterback is the biggest need for this team.
You're not. You're not. I'm on that island.
Others think that,
then I'm on
we have so many.
I'm on the island.
But I've seen a lot of people talk to right tackle, edge. I mean –
no.
I seen somebody say backup guard was like a swing tackle was a bigger need than quarterback. And what do y'all think about that? Because for me, it goes quarterback, edge, right tackle for the biggest needs. What do y'all think on that?
I'd probably swap mine. Mine go quarterback, right tackle, edge.
So I'll speak on this just because I've reminisced a lot about that this week with Will Levis, how he's progressed. I still don't think he is the guy for the future. I think I could see the option of riding another year with them just because of how this draft is set up. We number 2 in the draft right now. I don't think that's how it's going to finish. I think we'll eke out another win somewhere, unfortunately. But looking at the talent in this draft, there is lots of talent in the second round as far as edge rushers go. If we're sticking and picking at 2, there's one name on the board. It's Abdul Carter out of Penn State, freak athlete, former middle linebacker, so he's new to the edge position, and we're going to get real familiar with him as this draft process commences. Thinking of another former Penn State linebacker switch to edge that's been really successful. I mean, you're looking at Micah Parsons. I mean, that's something that's missing off this team. But in my opinion, you cannot pick there. You need to trade back. And I know we love baby boy Shedeur Sanders, and I still do. But, I mean, it's impossible not to see the red flags that are there with that. And then you can talk about Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward too. But in my opinion, right tackle is still the biggest need. It's holding this team back. And we're looking at this line's makeup going into next year. Lloyd Cushenberry tears his Achilles, probably going to miss a decent part of next season. You're looking at Dylan Radins, who is a free agent. having not a great stint this last couple of weeks that we talked about earlier. And then obviously the right tackle position has to be replaced. You might be looking at 3 new offensive line starters next season. And that might not be a bad thing, but we talk about it with Bill Callahan in this complex scheme. It takes time to gel. And we see it even with Peter Skoronski right now. J.C. Latham has been the enigma there that's come in and played really well from the get-go. But we're looking at these sack totals from these last couple of weeks, 12 sacks in the last 2 weeks. And I know people have talked about Will Levis holding the ball too long. I mean, I looked at the numbers. He's tied for 16th in the NFL over that span at 2.81 seconds, according to PFF. 9 of those 12 sacks are accredited to the line. 1 to Spears, 1 to Vanette, 1 to Skoronski, 2 to Radence, 2 to MPF, 1 to Prince, 1 to Ojukwu. So that's 4 off that right tackle position. The unfortunate part about that is these higher end tackles in this draft, which there's probably 4 of them that I can think of that are worthy of a first round pick. They all play left tackle. So then you beg the question, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot. Do you switch J.C. Latham back to the right side? Do you draft another left tackle? I don't think that's the correct option just to have J.C. Latham has performed this year. So you're probably switching a left to the right side. And with Radence, that I don't know if you bring him back. I really think Bill Callahan loves what he brings to the scheme just because of his versatility to displace, but he's also got the athleticism there. So maybe another year or two, short deal for him that would work out.
I'd give him a couple $1 million. I'd give him $2 or $3 million and say, come on.
Just for the continuity of that offensive line, I think it's going to be very important. I think Corey Levin's been playing center. He's done a great job these last couple of weeks.
Levin's good, man, and we haven't given Levin an opportunity. He's from University of Tennessee,
He's Nick
Chattanooga.
Westbrook-Akine. I mean, that's what he is on the offensive line.
He's really good.
Solid.
He's a really intelligent interior offensive lineman. And he's been with the team for a long time. Mm-hmm. He goes back regimes, so he's been with us for a long time. He's been on a practice squad. Really cerebral interior offensive lineman. He can do a job there. He a lot better than Brunskill, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Brunskill, I just don't think he fits the scheme for us. I think that's why he's been pushed down this depth chart. He's just not athletic. He's getting older, so that athleticism
Shout out
that
to Brunskill,
he has. But he's a road dog. I do like Brunskill and what he's brought to the team coming in just last year as a cheap free agent. But yeah. I think then we can talk about Will Levis too. I mean, over the
that's the biggest topic right here.
I think Levis impacts all that, though, in my opinion. In a way, quarterback is a sack. Sack is a quarterback stat, too, and people don't really realize that. Well, people are starting to realize it now.
I think it's more of a QB stat than it is an offensive line stat. I will give you that.
I'd say 60-40 for sure. At least, at the very minimum, it's a quarterback stat. Mm-hmm. So, how many years has Brady had? And I'm not comparing the two, but I'm saying at chief quarterback play, you see good quarterback play. How many years did Brady have? Lead the league in sacks or anything. It just didn't happen because he got the ball out. He knows where to go with the ball. He knows how to process. He knows he's able to do that. And his pocket movement is, that's the pinnacle of pocket movement. And Levis just doesn't have that.
The pressure to sack ratio has been very high for Will Levis, even going back to college. That's something he's going to improve slightly upon, but it's not going to make a big difference. What I think he does offer to the table is when you do protect him, he is a very solid quarterback. When he has the time to progress through those reads, which I think he has sped up with, and I don't know if it's even in the actual play itself. I think he's diagnosing more pre-snap. I think he does a good job of understanding where he needs to go with the football these last couple of weeks. And I think it was probably really good for him to sit for that time because I think he got more incohesive with the scheme. I felt like beforehand he was a half tick behind during the play, and that's what led to these stupid turnovers. And that's been the biggest thing for him. Looking at this, he had the one interception last week to end the game. But the last 2 weeks, no turnovers. That's pretty solid. Only 10 other quarterbacks can say that over that time span. And he's scoring points. The Nick Westbrook-Akine 99 or 98-yard touchdown, that one I go back and forth with because it does pad the stats. And we've seen him not make that throw too. If that's a foot outside, he doesn't break 200 yards in that game. And it might be a completely different discussion. But he did hit it, so it's you can't play if and buts or candies and nuts with it.
Right.
Exactly. And we do have to kind of come correct here, right? Because we've been very harshly critical of his play, rightfully so, for the past several weeks, so much to the point where we're like, okay, let's all just move on. It's Shedeur Sanders time. But what's interesting is that these past two performances, I wasn't very impressed with the Chargers game. A lot of people were. I think it's just because it didn't include some turnovers, right? And that's like, okay, cool. The bar's really low for him to succeed or to not be completely horrible. But to me, this game was his best game, and for a lot of reasons. The biggest thing that I was looking for back from Will Levis that we just haven't seen at all this year was his accuracy down the field and his ability to connect on big plays. And he did that on several occasions here. And as a matter of fact, let's just say that illegal formation play doesn't happen in that instance. And then the Calvin Ridley that I don't know how long it was, maybe 50, 60 yards, maybe 45, something like that. The big play to Calvin Ridley, if that play stands and that touchdown stands, not only does it change the essence of the game, because again, you score on two massive big throws down the field back to back. I mean, that changes the momentum in a really, really big way. But more importantly, that would have put Will Levis over 320 yards passing and over 2 passing touchdowns with, sure, the pick at the end of the game. It's like, you can kind of like, I don't put a whole lot of agency into that. Who's trying to
it's just
push the ball, make a play. But if that's the stats we're reading off today, then this is a completely different ball game that we're talking about, man. Like, this is a completely different Will Levis performance. So for me, it goes right back to what I've been saying for weeks, right? It's like there's a chance that either we need to be really terrible and lose out and then be looking at a quarterback, or Will Levis needs to string it together, and we need to see enough over these past several games or these next several games.
He's got 7 games left for us to evaluate.
There's plenty of time, right? So as barring any injury or anything crazy, if he can string together the rest of the season in similar fashion to what these past 2 weeks have been, then I think we'll be talking about a different situation. Like maybe there is, at the bare minimum, an opportunity for you to continue the development for Will Levis. And it's like, okay, we've seen enough. Like, this is the guy we should go forward with. And if we end up with a really low pick, either you go after like a Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, somebody like that, or like what Colin Cowherd is talking about, which I think is bananas. But a team that's like, if you end up high enough, maybe you're in position to trade for the absolute house because someone wants to trade up for Shedeur. Maybe you put yourself in that position. So either way, it's a good thing for the Titans. I will say the one thing that can't happen, which is also something I've been saying for weeks, is that what can't happen is that Will Levis is good enough to win us a couple more games, but then he's equally bad in half the games and then really good in half the games. And if that happens, then that we're still in a position where we don't have a proper evaluation of him, or the evaluation is he's not the guy, but he's a guy. And the Titans absolutely cannot move forward with just a guy. That's what this franchise has had for years and years and years. You have to get the guy. And so if Will Levis is not the guy, then they need to go draft him. And so that's why I'm cautiously optimistic right now. I'm like, okay, I do like, he's put together a decent game and then a good game in my eyes. I like what Callahan's doing with scheming him up some specific run plays. I don't know if you guys have caught on to that. I'm sure everybody picks it up as you're watching the game, but what I like about it that they've done is they've schemed up run plays for him to get active and get moving. And I think what that does is that's allowing him to kind of see the field and get him in the feel of, okay, I need to tuck and run. Like, don't throw this bad ball if it's not there. Tuck it and get out, or just tuck it and take the sack. And I think he did a good job of that in the Vikings game, where previously in the year, he would have tried to escape and try to make a play. And in my opinion, in those moments, that doesn't really work because that puts yourself in dangerous position to turn over the ball. So there is progress in that regard. And shout out to Brian Callahan, because that is a schematic change that's helping him kind of see the field and kind of put him in a different position. So for everyone saying like fire Brian Callahan, this is this isn't going to work. Callahan is very clearly scheming up some adjustments to try to help him progress. And from what I've seen for the past 2 weeks in that way, he has gotten better. We haven't seen any bonehead crazy turnovers or anything like that. And I think overall, if you can eliminate those plays, then that's also helping him mentally kind of stay on track. And you know what? This is the last thing I'll say. I'll turn it over to you guys. My favorite part of this past week's game against the Vikings, my favorite part, Will Levis dots Nick Westbrook-Akine. He goes 98 yards. And then if you look at Will, the camera pans to Will Levis after Nick's little, hot diggity dog dance. They pan to Will Levis and he's just straight faced. He's not smiling. He's not going crazy. That demeanor, he's just locked the fuck in. And so right when I saw that face, the first person I thought of was B-Will. And I was like, there it is. He tuned in. He saw those episodes where B-Will was getting on his ass about the demeanor. And he's like, I just, man, like the face, like the way I reacted, I'm just sitting in my living room by myself watching the game. And I'm like, attaboy, Will. That's exactly how you should be responding. Like you fucking belong there. That 98-yard tud is light work. That is what you're supposed to see. It's what you're supposed to do. So that was my favorite part of the game.
He's acting like, because a lot of times he'll act like Joe Namath when he did that, and that's just, he's got to act like he's been there.
And like the first touchdown of the year, and he's just like the Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, like get that shit out of here.
Yeah, get that corner shit out of
here.
But
here's the thing where I'm at with this situation. So Levis has improved over the last few weeks. The bar that he's improving from was incredibly low. So that's one thing that we have to take note of. And where I'm at with it is there's only two guys that I want to have before I just say Levis rock it out for next year, and then we'll try and get another quarterback in the draft in 2026 or whatever. And that's Matt Stafford and Shedeur Sanders. If we're able to get one of those two guys, and it might be, it's a long shot for both. Let's be honest. We got to lose out to get Shedeur Sanders, and we got to trade some capital to get Stafford. It's a long shot for both.
Jags, and
we got to lose to the Jags twice. That's going to be tough. But the point is, it's really hard to plan for those scenarios because it's just a long shot to do it, and it's a long shot to trade for Stafford to agree to the right comp with the Rams, even though they're one of the most willing trade partners with any player they have over the last few years. You see that. But I'm willing to, let's see what Levis can do next year. I don't think it'll be fine, but I think it'll inadvertently put us in the position to get our quarterback of the future in 2026. And I think that's where me and Jonathan have a little bit of a discrepancy at, because I think we have a year to play with. This regime has a year to play with, and some don't think this regime has a year to play with. I think they do.
Well, hold on. Let me add to that, because that was a long discussion last week, and I think okay, in proper context, it does matter, right? So okay, this is where I'm at. If Will Levis is truly not the guy, like you decide he is not the franchise quarterback, then you're kind of, kicking the can on 2026 season, right? And you're saying, okay, let's go. We have another year to kind of just fudge that up. I don't agree with that. But what I can get on board with and can understand is that if you see enough of positive reinforcement from the play of Will Levis for the rest of the year, and then the internal conversation with them is actually, hey, we actually don't think that Will is the guy. However, we can sell this to the fan base because Will was good enough to say, we're going to stick with him. He's our guy. Then you stick with him knowing that it's not going to go well, and then you're going to be able to be in a better draft class position next year. I can see that being the case. But what I'm saying is that you can't go into 2025 with no quarterback, with knowing that Will Levis is not the guy, and then kicking the can on a year and knowing the fan base knows that. That's kind of my point. You can't willingly say, you can't. Well, the money cares. People showing up, paying for stuff cares. All that matters.
It's a year.
Going into the stadium, bro. Like, it's just not going to happen. However, there's a chance. There's a chance that it can be sold to the fan base, and that could be the reality. But all of us, from a front-facing standpoint, all think that that we're okay. Will could be the guy because he beat Houston in Houston that week, and he beat the Jags twice, and then he beat Joe Burrow. He outperformed Joe Burrow and threw 4 touchdowns in that game. Like, if he does that type of stuff, but then the Titans still end like 5-12 or whatever, then you're kind of still in the same boat, right? Like you're like, okay, Will he looks like the guy, but maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Then you can sell me on Will Levis for that, and then you could sell me on a potential kicking of the can for next season as well.
This fan base just lapped up 2 weeks of Will Levis half-ass mediocre play.
Did you see what I'm saying? So that's my point.
I'm saying the message doesn't matter because this fan base is going to buy into whatever when it comes August. They're going to buy into it for the first 2 or 3 games of the season, no matter what. That's the most of your fan base is going to do that.
Not if Will Levis has a terrible second half of this season, they bench him and then they sign Daniel Jones and go into next season with Daniel Jones.
Nobody said that. And that's not even a conversation. It's Will Levis riding with Will Levis another year. The fan base will get on board with that for the first 2 weeks. I mean, that's all you need. I mean, buy the season tickets, you're done.
Yeah, I think the fan base would buy into it. I think where I am more similar to you guys in riding with Will Levis next season, I'm saying you still draft a quarterback. It doesn't have to be in the first round. This is a deeper class.
No, I don't like that.
And I think the Titans, I think the fan base will get behind it. I think you go get a tackle, you go get an edge, whatever, wide receiver, Travis Hunter, whoever in those first couple of rounds. You're sitting there round 6, round 7. There's a Dylan Gabriel, a Curtis Rourke, a Jackson Dart there on the board. I think you bring him in, and then you're looking at that talk about, hey, this guy could potentially push Will Levis. See how he fits in the scheme. Probably isn't going to work out. Hear me out. It's not going to work out. But then you're just kicking the can down the road and preparing this team for the future franchise. You're getting that guy in 2026, and then you're sailing.
This regime is not doing that when their ass is on the line. They're not going to waste a 6th-round pick on a prospective quarterback if they don't think it's the guy. They know they're about to get fired.
They need a backup
for the backup. They need a backup, right? So, like,
you're not drafting him to start. You're just having a discussion, and then there's going to be the training camp talk where, hey, Curtis Rourke, he's outperforming Will Levis out there, and then that talk's going to continue, and then week 4. Will Levis is going to do a chest pass under toss, pick 6, and then the whispers are going to get louder and louder. And then you can talk about that switch. And then they come in, and they're awful, and they're the same player, if not worse. And then you get your Nico Namaliava. Or you get
I hate this conversation.
This regime is not going to do that, man. I'm telling you, because what happens when he sucks and he's in there, this fan base is going to point to this regime and say, he sucks at drafting, yada, yada, yada. And that's the problem, but I don't think it's going to happen, Jack. I mean, it sounds right, Jake, but I don't think that they're going to do that just because of the context of what situation they're going to be in.
Let's talk about Jarvis Brownlee or something that's not going to make me throw up.
I think just talking about Denard Wilson and Hull is good. This regime, we're down starting 2 cornerbacks. That's what it is. L'Jarius Sneed's out this week. We know Cheeto's still out. Hopefully we'll get back.
He opened his window.
Bro, this Cheeto injury is insane, by the way. What is this timeline?
And did we sign him to a 1 or 2 year deal? It was 2 years, right? Yeah. So we're getting him back next season. But
we don't have an out after this year, I don't think.
I'm not sure.
I don't think we have an out.
I don't want to misquote it. But I mean, what Denard Wilson has done with his secondary has been amazing because we're down 3 starters. Mike Brown comes in, and we're talking about bad penalties. Man, that one last
one.
Mike Brown's been balling, bro. He's been balling great since he's got plugged in there, and he's gotten totally screwed by these penalties. That's insane.
This defense has been very good. I mean, they've just been hurt, is what it's been.
Yeah,
we're looking at the scheme, and coming into the year, we were thinking this is going to be very complex. They're going to play press man. They're going to bring blitzes everywhere, and that's just not been the case. They've been lining up and playing sound football. I would say Shane Bowen's scheme has been more complex in itself, but I think what Denard Wilson offers you is you plug in better players at those positions and you see what they do in those first couple of weeks. L'Jarius Sneed will get Cheeto back next year, but I mean, we're talking about Jarvis Brownlee next year. Yeah, I mean,
I thought you were making a joke about his injury.
Nah, he's gonna play and it's gonna be fine, but it doesn't mean anything this year. Yeah, but we're looking.
I think that's why a lot of these guys ain't playing. But that's a whole.
I agree.
Yeah. I think that's also why L'Jarius Sneed keeps being out every week is because they're like, screw it, like You know,
Why
we're
waste
not
the
winning the
time?
championship. Yeah. Well, no, but
Yeah.
more so than anything, get your young guys who are playing really well, honestly.
Figure out what you have.
Yeah.
Figure out what you have. And Jarvis Brownlee's played great. I do think that was pass interference. I don't think that was one of the bad calls. He did hold him. And Justin Jefferson, he's going to get those calls. It's just who he is. So I don't mind that, but he played a very good game. Justin Jefferson comes out afterwards and say, hey, you're a future star, kid. And I think that's a credit to Denard Wilson, who's going to be in the bag next year. And that's something we were worried about talking about in the offseason because he is a great defensive-minded coach.
Thank goodness.
How many? I hope so. How many guys do you think Justin Jefferson has said that to this year? I don't want to be a
11.
guy. I'm just asking.
He said it to at least 11.
What's their record? 5-2 or 7-4.
Yeah. So
seriously, though, I mean, it has enough truth in it for us to talk about it because Brownlee's been that good as a rookie this year, and that's a testament.
He's a fifth-round pick. You don't.
That's a testament to Wilson. Exactly. That's a testament to Wilson and
we were
Brownlee.
mocking him in the 3rd round, by the way.
Yeah.
In the offseason, for those of you watching.
Yep. And Brownlee wasn't even, for me, when I was looking at his tape, he wasn't even the best corner at Louisville. They've got a guy coming out this year that was better, in my opinion. So, I forget his name, Jake. I don't know if you know his name.
Not off the top of my head. I haven't got to check out any Louisville tape here recently. I've been too deep in running backs and linebackers right now.
But when I looked at Brownlee after we drafted him, the corner on the other side of him is the one that stood out to me. So, but Brownlee is still, he has the intangibles to be really good. And like I said, Snead is a guy that's going to take him under his wing and has taken him under his wing. And you can see that in his play style. You can see the influence that L'Jarius Snead has on Jarvis Brownlee. And it's really good to see. It's not just Denard Wilson that's doing a good job. It's the vets on this defense that are really taking some of these guys under their wing. Even Jeffrey Simmons taking Sweat under his wing. That interior pressure that they're creating is going to magnify once we get somebody half decent at edge. And that's really going to show. This defensive line is going to be a problem. We're not far off. This team is not far off.
It's very close.
And that's why I say quarterback is such a big need because this team is so close.
Agreed.
I do agree, but I think Will Levis could be potentially that upgrade that you need. He just got to get a little bit better. He's very close.
There's still a chance.
Yeah.
Can we say one thing here? Look, we said this several weeks ago, and then B-Will wrote it off immediately because rightfully so, because there was no reason to think otherwise. But then me and Jake were kind of like 5% kicking the tires on like potentially, right? Like this guy could come out and potentially have a decent. But what I'm saying is like this is the rest of the season is actually super interesting, right? As a fan base, we have a lot to look at because a couple of things can happen. There's really 3 outcomes. Outcome number 1 is that Will Levis just stinks out loud for the rest of the game. He's horrible. And then you end up, you're like, okay, we got to draft a quarterback. That was awful, right? That's option 1. Option 2 is the very unfortunate, he could be good half of the games and look really bad the other half. And then you feel like your evaluation process is still not completely done. You're like, shoot, he had enough potential, but at the same time he was bad, but then he was really good here. That's a really awful, in my personal opinion, the worst spot you can be in. But then there's the third outcome of he could look great. And the 2 games that we just watched from him, he could string those together and we could have those for the next, like I said, like he outperforms Joe Burrow and then he beats Houston on the road. And like all these little things could really string together. And you can go, okay, the time that he took off after the injury, like all of that was good perspective for him. He clearly grew from it. Brian Callahan's getting a better feel for how he kind of needs to scheme him up. And he's kind of got this Josh Allen play style where he likes to get the ball in his hand and truck dudes and whatever. And obviously that's not great for injury's sake, but maybe for an offensive, it just kind of puts him in the right position. Who knows, right? There's like all these different outcomes, but what's interesting is that this could really go in either direction. It could be the worst extreme or it could be the best extreme. Mm-hmm. And as long as we're tipping on one of those sides very clearly, then I think the Titans are going to be a good position. The only thing that fans should be rooting against are these up and down performances. At this point in his career, we cannot have it. We absolutely have to have a quarterback that we feel good about at the very least going into next season, whether that's Will Levis or someone we draft or bring in.
I'm going to tell you what, if that third scenario is what we're going to go with, and that's the play style that we're going to really run with, is that Josh Allen-ish, brutish quarterback style play, where we're going to utilize him in the run game quite a bit, sort of power run game, sort of
it's not
close
horrible.
to what the Ravens
he's a hard
do.
Runner.
Here's what I need
last,
Levis to
though.
do. This is what I need Levis to do, and this is what I've talked about. This is what I talked about in the offseason. I wanted this in the offseason. I wanted this him coming out of the draft. I need him to put on 15 pounds. He's got to put on 15,
yes, I would agree with
15, 20 pounds. He needs to get up to about 245, 250. If we're going to play that, he's already at like 230 or 225, right?
Yeah,
I want him at 245. I want him at 245, 250. If he's going to have that play style, he needs to put on the extra weight to absorb those hits and be able to do that. Because Josh Allen plays at freaking 260. You know what I mean? That's what I need out of Will Levis if we're going to do that.
He's not 260.
Dude, Josh Allen.
He's Derrick Henry out there.
No, he's 250. He plays at 250.
I believe.
He plays every bit of
260.
250. Dude, Josh Allen plays at 250, man. Seriously, somebody should look. So who's in the chat? Somebody look it up. He plays at 250. But here's my point.
250.
Here's my point though, is if we're gonna go that route and Levis proves that he can be serviceable in the pass game and we just have like this power run style, play action, West Coast style like the Bills are doing, that's sort of a blueprint to beat Kansas City if we're gonna do that scenario. But Levis has to really take.
And he's listed at 237.
That's a lie,
bro. I knew it.
That's a lie.
It's probably 245, 240, 245.
Yeah,
probably to start the season. I would give you that. By the end,
I think
of the season,
to be Will's credit,
by then
he puts weight on for sure.
Yeah, he looks husky throughout the season.
I was like, wait a second.
He looks husky throughout the season, but that's what I got to see. That's something I've always wanted out of Levis, is for him to put weight on if he's going to do that. And if we're going to go that route, which I don't, that's a scenario that I'm talking about that I do not think is going to happen because I don't think he's going to play well enough for it to happen. But if he does, that's what I need from him, and I think we can have a different conversation if he does that.
Schematically, I really like it. I think it kind of fits his play because, there's so many scenarios where he wants to tuck and run. And let's be honest, like, he's got good speed. He's an athlete, bro. He's got good speed and he's a tough runner. So to me, like, obviously that's the thing that makes me nervous about Josh Allen's play, but Josh has been able to make it work. Now, to Jake's point, like, Will has gotten hurt a lot. He's already done it this year. Yes, the play he made was incredible. That was a first down, if we're being honest. The play he made was incredible, but he got hurt, and it took him out for 3.5 games essentially. So, yeah, I mean, there's got to be some consistency there from an injury standpoint. But I don't hate it. I don't hate the play style.
Yeah, I'm still confused by Will Levis too. Can y'all correct me? I don't. He's really athletic, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but he's really athletic. They say he went to Penn State and Kentucky and had good grades, but for me, he just comes off dumb as a stump. What? I don't get it with him.
He's a bro's bro, I think, when it comes down to it. He's probably very book smart, but
Peyton Manning's very keen to him. I think he studied with him, and he said that he really liked him as a player. So I don't think it's his intelligence as far as the game goes. I think
does he get nervous in game?
I think it was a mental. I think it's been a mental thing. It's very clearly a mental thing. So you got to think about it. Like, he can get on the podium and say things like, yeah, I just got to be this and this, and we got to do this and da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, yeah, I don't really pay attention to social media and da-da-da-da. That's bullshit, brother. You were TikTok dancing 2 years ago. Yeah. Of course you pay attention to social media. Of course he's looking at it.
If you make a TikTok video, you pay attention to social media. I'll be honest.
100%. And so here's the thing. I don't blame him for like kind of like emotionally turtling a little bit and just trying to be a good quarterback, because he's not only trying to win the locker room over, but he's also trying to improve because his level of play is not where it needs to be. So you're trying to lead men. You're trying to step into a leadership role when you yourself don't feel super confident in your own play. I don't know if you guys have ever had this moment in life, but I know for sure I have, where I've stepped into a leadership situation where I was supposed to be, leading other people, but I wasn't feeling super confident about how I was doing. And guess what? That's a cocktail for disaster. So naturally, you put this young man in one of the biggest positions. He does the Hellman's thing. That's getting blown up. He's got a ton of hype going into this season. Everybody believes in him. He comes out and he has one of the shittiest games that you can see in Chicago's awful. And then he just turns into a meme, and then he says, I don't pay attention to social media. That's bullshit. Of course he paid attention to social media. And then his mental health just declines from there. So this is a kid who's been through a lot. And we'll see. Like, can he overcome it? But this is the thing. Like, you want to play quarterback in the NFL, you have to overcome all this. So that's why we're kind of in a kind of a fun situation now that he's strung together two like decent, like pretty good games. Now it's like, okay, cool. Can you build on this? Can you overcome all the bullshit that happened earlier in the year and start building on that momentum? Because if you can, then we can sell our fan base on, hey, let's go another round. Let's add good pieces here. Let's get some continuity on the offensive side and on the defensive side. Hopefully, with Denard Wilson returning, there's still a chance he takes head coach interviews. By the way, even if we do terrible,
He will.
Sure he does.
I just don't think it'll happen.
He's still going to get head coaching job, or there's still a chance. But yeah, and then you can build on that future, and that's why I'm kind of like I'm cautiously optimistic at like 10% right now. I'm out about 90%.
Went up 5.
It's gone up 5. Like I'm at like 10% where I'm like, okay, there's a chance. And so who knows? But I all I'm praying for is that it goes one way or another. If it's Will, fantastic. That's best case scenario for this team. If Will puts together the rest of the season like he did these past 2 weeks, that's best case scenario for us because we're going to end up with a really good pick. We'll be able to add a really good player and or trade that away to get more assets. And we've seen what Rand Carthon can do with more assets. So from here, that is really best case scenario for this fan base. But if that's not the case, then by God, we have to be completely terrible and only beat the Jaguars at least once for the rest of the year because we have got to go get our quarterback. And in my opinion, it's got to be Shedeur.
Agreed.
All right, so you're at 10% in on Will Levis right now.
I'm 10%.
Where are you at this point in time? Just
1.
a hard number. 1%. I have gone up significantly. I'll say like I don't know, 30-ish%. I think
wow.
I've gone up.
Nice.
I've gone up, and hopefully,
wait, hold on.
Jay,
B-Will.
It's because of the backdrop picture.
B-Will, wait,
Right.
1%? You're
Shout out
at
to
1%
Tony
after last
Keeley.
week?
Yeah, dude. It's the quarterback play in combination with the demeanor, the temperament. It's the same concerns I've had.
The Vikings game doesn't do anything for you?
It goes from 0 to 1.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. We'll take
like
it.
it.
He's back in. He's back in, folks. He's back in. The door is cracked. He's got the door cracked. He's got the door cracked and he's peeping through.
All right. We got to get out of here. So let's hop into these picks. Not a lot going on this week in the AFC South. Lions at Colts. They get another bye for Detroit. And then we got Titans at Texans. Houston favored by 7.5.
Tell them what I did last week, Jake.
Will pulled off what year was the Patriots went undefeated? I forget, but he went 4-0. Me and Jonathan, we picked the Jets. We went 3-1, falling slightly behind, but we're all in this race pretty close. So it could mix up.
Jonathan's hot on my heels.
Last 7 weeks, but starting with the Lions Colts, I'll go ahead and kick it off. Lions on the road. I think the Lions get another bye week. They beat up on Anthony Richardson, who had a good game himself last week. I'll give him
very good
shown improvement. Yeah. So maybe it's not the end of the road for him. We'll see. We'll see how long it takes before Joe Flacco's back in there. But I'll go and take Detroit. What about you, Jonathan?
Hold on, Jonathan. Who had a better week last week?
It was AR.
No, I would agree.
He did. He had a good game.
Who's had a better season?
What kind of question is that?
Better season. That's interesting.
Do you want to eat this throw up?
No, we don't have time. We don't have time.
No.
Okay, so for me, yeah, I mean, I'm taking the Lions. I think they're gonna. See, that's the thing. This Colts team. You know, you give them a little bit of credit. They fight when they really should just not be in the fight, if we're being honest. But this Lions team, in my opinion, is the best football team in the league right now. I think they're far better than any team in the AFC, at least with how they're playing. I mean, for God's sakes, Jared Goff is throwing 5 picks and they're still finding a way to win the game. I mean, that's just absurd. The Titans would have got flooded by any team throwing 5 picks. But yeah, I think the Lions probably win this one by like 10. The Colts probably keep it competitive in some fashion, but at the same time, I wouldn't be completely surprised if they didn't win by a pair of touchdowns. But yeah, it's the Lions for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Lions are going to steamroll the Colts, even if Jim Irsay pumps that fake crowd noise into the stadium like he normally does.
I'm sure it'll be there. And then obviously Titans at Texans going to Houston. Typically, me and B-Will are in the stands for that one. We will not be this year.
I was in Houston the wrong weekend.
Wise choice.
Yep. Wise choice, I think. And I
Wait.
think
It is in Houston, right?
yeah,
It
it's
is.
in Houston.
Yeah, I
Yep.
thought so.
Yep. I'd rather go to Norman on Saturday and watch Alabama beat the shit out of the Sooners, which is going to be unfortunate either way. But Norman is closer, so that's the way I went. But
Yes.
I'm going to take the Houston Texans in this one. Unfortunately, I think it'll be closer than I think it could be a 3-point game. Give me the Texans 24-21.
Wow.
24-21.
Let me find out. Let me find out you're going on an undercover Jalen Milroe scouting mission.
Hey,
He is.
Please
don't bring it up.
I didn't say that.
Oh
but
He's bringing the binoculars. He's
he
bringing the
is my
shades.
QB2 right now, and he's whispering QB1.
He's gonna have the Morning Glory Show hat on. He's gonna be doing an undercover scouting
I'm
mission
my
at Jalen
clipboard out
Milroe.
there.
Him and Stoney Keeley are gonna be looking at Jalen Milroe out there. But
biggest upside, I'll say that right now, to this QB class.
Oh, his upside is nuts.
I think Cam Ward's upside is way better than Jalen's, but
Cam Ward is just Will Levis, but faster.
Yeah. So with the game Houston, Tennessee at Houston, Houston's favored by 7.5. I think they cover. I think they beat I say they beat Tennessee by 8, maybe. So I'd say 24-16. That's what I'll say.
That's a good one. Yeah, that was going to be close
Which
to my
I don't know how we get the.
That's what I was thinking.
Say, how do we get to 16?
Right, I was like, we go for 2 twice.
No, we score a touchdown, 3 field goals.
Okay.
Or we go for 2. I don't know.
Start your Nick Folk and fantasy folks.
Yep.
Yeah, this is very simple. I mean, this is going to be a Texans win. This Texans team is better than their record shows, in my opinion. I think the couple of things that are going for the Titans in this matchup is the ability to potentially stop Joe Mixon. The Titans' rush defense has always been pretty good, so there's a lot of potential there. But they're gonna send Joe out wide. They're gonna put him in the flat. They're gonna dump off a lot of passes out there. The one thing that C.J. Stroud does better that Will, in my opinion, is getting the ball out to those flat routes, to those checkdowns faster, because he knows he doesn't have it downfield and just takes the 6-7 yard gains. They're going to dink and dunk the Titans a lot in that way. So I think they're going to move the ball well. Nico Collins is back? Question mark.
I think he's been back, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's back last week.
Yeah, but he's going to be back in full force in this one. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for the Titans. I don't think anybody matches up really well against Nico. To be honest, maybe
league
Jarvis
matches up with Nico.
Yeah, Nico's a dog. So yeah, that's a really tough one. So yeah, I think this offense is going to be pretty potent against us, and at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to efficiency on our offensive side. I think that the Titans defense is good enough to keep us close, but I don't know that our offense is good enough to keep us within striking range. So I think the Titans will probably play really well early on. You know, there's always that divisional buff that happens, first matchup of the year between these two teams. So that'll be interesting. And I think the Titans will keep it close. And who knows, maybe there's even a chance that they find a way to be within 7 or so. But I think the Texans are probably going to end up winning. My score prediction, I'm going to go Texans 28. No, sorry. I'm going to go Texans 27, Titans 13.
Ooh,
you know what?
2 touchdowns. Give me 23-17, Jake, please.
23-17. And yep. I got to play some catch up here. And I could see I'm switching.
Titans.
I'm taking the fucking
This guy's
Titans.
all in, man.
Just when I'm out, they bring me back in. I'm going to switch my
30%.
score 24-21.
We're going to take off the division winners.
Oh,
and then I'm going to drop down this,
there's
this
a chance.
ranking. I mean,
It's doable.
I hate it. But
It's doable.
we appreciate everybody in the comments, from Amar to Cap for Life, MB in the comments as always. Brandon, we appreciate you. I haven't seen you in the comments before. So we'll be checking you guys out next Thursday.
Brandon, subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, folks. Get that Tajay Spears signed jersey. We need to get there. We've been stuck at this 940-ish mark for like a month now. Let's get to 941 and then 942, and then we'll hit that 1,000 subscriber mark, guys. But we appreciate you guys. Tighten up, and we will check y'all next Thursday.